So people have been talking a lot about ChatGPT-5 since it came out last week. And what really interests me is how good is it at package handling? Because we all know, packages, NuGet or NPM or whatever, go into, they make up the building blocks for software and they go through a lot of revisions. So with AI assisted coding, you often have that AI grabs the wrong version, is trained on older data, older versions, and then you get a big mess when it writes code. And that I find is actually the biggest problem with AI assisted coding right now for me, because I only give it small to medium tasks. I make sure the prompts are very comprehensive, but it often grabs wrong package versions or outdated package versions, unless I absolutely force it to, etc. And I had a really funny thread last week where I was communicating with Gemini and it completely fumbled the bag. So I made a video about that, but I record these early in the morning and my hair's never good. I didn't like how it looked, so I didn't put it on LinkedIn. I put it on my personal YouTube channel. But yeah, I thought it was really funny how it claimed it knew what was in packages and what was in newer packages, and then it gaslit me over and over, and I didn't get anywhere. And I just found it was fascinating. And I actually recorded this like 1.5 days before suddenly ChatGPT-5 came out. So I was very curious, how does ChatGPT-5 handle the same case? And you can go and watch that video where I, where Gemini hallucinated, all kinds of weird namespaces and stuff, and it made up things. So I gave the exact same prompt to ChatGPT-5, and it does so much better. Like, I gave it the same prompt, and it understood what I wanted to do, and so yeah, maybe it's not, I mean, it is a good suggestion, to just see what's your log level, double check that, and maybe if you set that to verbose, then it logs your tool calls. It doesn't though. So then it said, if that doesn't work, then you can wrap it with an overload. Yeah, it does look like a good suggestion. And then if supported, use a decorator or middleware approach. And I like that it frames it like if the SDK supports it. I would have preferred if it had gone out and immediately researched if that's the case. So all right. So when it gave me the answer, I was actually excited about it because it was so much better than Gemini. Now when I read it, it's it's not perfect because it could have researched these and give me the right answer. And so then I. Just like in the previous thread, where I upgraded actually to the preview 3, I just asked it if it supported. So then it went out and looked, and it supports dependency injection, and it gave me some code. Once again, really the LLM suggested version does not work, and what it says does not work. So you know what, maybe I should give ChatGPT-5 maybe a B-. But at least it completely backtracks immediately. It says, okay, it doesn't actually exist, which Google Gemini didn't do. It just gaslit me and said, oh, you're just not implementing it right, you're missing using directives, etc. So ChatGPT-5 here quickly backtracks and says, wrap the tools yourself, which is what I wanted to avoid, but it gives me this approach and a couple other things. And so the code it gave me, wasn't maybe that great, and it admits here it slipped in here as a shorthand where it should have illustrated exactly what it meant for me to implement. And yeah, well, then I admit that I just gave it that question to see if it would get tripped up by the library being so new and stuff. And I have to like adjust my rating. Like Google Gemini was like, God, it was like a D minus. So ChatGPT-5 was better, but maybe B minus. But it's like it's a tricky problem, and at least it said that chances are you have to implement this yourself. Now the training data of Gemini was up to like 2023, so this is newer, still before the model context protocol. And it says, I admit your question was a good trap. Most people would happily made up things without catching it's not in the API. So, and then I banter a little bit around with it. And it claims that, even older ChatGPT versions can be guilty of hallucinating non-existing methods if the pattern sounds right. And that has been like my big complaint about these models, and something that people who one-shot games or whatever don't really encounter that much. Because if you already have code and it uses a lot of packages, then you can run into these compatibility problems that you don't run into with these one-shot problems. So I just probe a little bit how it was trained, or how its system prompt is maybe configured, and it says. So I say, so I assume you are trained to actually double check through online sources what options are provided by an API or SDK before producing code. It says, yeah, that's a big change from how earlier models behaved. And of course, we can't 100% trust this, but it does sound like it's trained to treat API details as suspect, and double check with up-to-date sources, which maybe it didn't quite do at the beginning. I mean, it was like, okay, here are these options that might work. It didn't go and verify. Then I probe more. So how do you check these? Do you go by official documentation, or do you check on GitHub? And so it tells me how a human should do it. And then it's personal rule. A personal rule for LLM sounds a little bit weird, but okay. So ChatGPT-5's personal rule is docs first, source second, and compiled output last. And so I asked directly, how do you handle that you've likely been trained on a lot of code that uses outdated library versions? Do you have special processing for that too, to double check the code you're generating adheres to the latest version unless otherwise specified? And of course it agrees with me, which is just expected. But it says recognize version drift risk early, and it claims that it has library packages marked as high drift risk, which is a good approach, because there are some older NuGet libraries that are super stable that you don't have to check, and then there are some libraries that go through rapid iterations and have to be checked. Okay, for high drift, rapidly changing libraries, this is my approach. Again, check official docs, check GitHub, which made me excited. That's why I initially gave it a B+, but now I'm thinking, all right, and we see here in a minute, is this maybe all just BS like you often get from LLMs? Potentially. Okay, so I'm now trained to ask, this API looks right, but I'm not sure if it's actually in this version. Should I confirm? And yeah, so it admits that, yeah, one big problem that people, I think, online don't talk a lot or don't talk enough about with AI assisted programming is this whole problem with these many different versions of many different packages. And then you have even, like here it calls it Frankensteining, which is a good expression for, you're assembling your program with different incompatible packages. So, but then I ask it a tricky question, and let's see how it actually does in a thread where it already knows this is about version drift and packages, and you would expect it to go out and check even more in this context. But so then I ask it, let me guess, the official Expo libraries are among the ones marked as high drift. What do you like for displaying videos in an Expo app? And that's like one of those trick questions. I've been working with Expo lately, and those libraries, I mean, Expo's going through so many iterations, and it seems to know, okay, Expo's libraries are poster children for high drift. They deprecate or rename props almost every release. Yeah, then your app doesn't work when you try to install something or upgrade something. So then I asked it, what do you like for displaying videos in an Expo app? And yeah, it fumbled the bag. It said, okay, the most reliable and officially supported option is Expo AV. So then I asked it, and of course Expo AV was deprecated. And then it checked and it found, yeah, it has been replaced by a newer, improved version. That's not just a rumor. That's in the official documentation that Expo AV is outdated. So I was very disappointed that it, after all this talk about how it's marking, or it has marked libraries for high drift and will always check those, and it'll always, make sure it gives you the right kind of code. And then the first tricky question I ask it, it fumbles the bag. So, yeah, and then I ask it to give me a short blurb or pre-prompt so I can make sure it checks for the latest version before suggesting any code. So that's probably a good approach to do. Yeah, so then I ask it again, just in case, how to display video in an Expo app with this prompt. And then it goes and says, yeah, use Expo video. And then I said, okay, you did great now. And once the package situation is sort of handled, I mean, then we really get into territory where, if you write your own code right, if maybe you put a lot of readmes into different subsection of your code and the different components that you are using and that you wrote yourself for your code, then maybe we get to a state where you can throw a very complex code base at AI and it can do it. But especially now with ChatGPT-5, yeah, I've kind of given up that this will happen this year or next year. There's just too many pitfalls still. But I am excited that there's progress, and I think actually even just with the capabilities that AIs have now, and some other people have said that too, even if there's absolutely zero progress, just with the progress in tooling, progress in package stability, etc., we could get to the point where AI can write most code, can write most features. We'll post again whenever the mood strikes me to talk about something that I find interesting that I don't see talked about all over the place online. So till then, bye.